didn't agree with the outcome of the election that are going to fight Donald Trump every step of the way, I guess, on any actions he takes on the environment, any actions he takes on immigration. It's funny how the worm turns, because when states like Arizona passed rules allowing their police to assist the federal government in its, I don't know, it's policing, it's policing the border, stopping people who are in just regular traffic stops and questioning them about their immigration status. Remember, the liberals went to court and they sued over that because they claimed that the states did not have a right to interfere in the immigration policies of the federal government. But in California, they want to claim that the state does have a right to prevent Donald Trump from enforcing immigration laws in that state. It's weird how the irony of that whole thing. But in Texas, what they're trying to do in some other states is fight back on these whole sanctuary city issue. Eben Brown with Fox News Radio is joining us right now. Eben, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So what can be done at a state level about sanctuary cities?
Well, I can tell you something that's being done or is being, I guess you could say, fought in Travis County, Texas, which includes the city of Austin, where the newly elected sheriff has said they're not going to comply with either federal law enforcement in terms of locking up people who have been brought in for immigration issues or for arresting people on immigration issues if they happen to catch them, in some other way. For instance, if they pull over a driver, it turns out that driver may be wanted by the feds for immigration issues, they're not going to bring them in. And that has drawn the ire of the governor in Texas, Greg Abbott. And by the way, this newly elected sheriff is a Democrat, and Greg Abbott is a Republican, the governor. The governor has said that if the sheriff won't comply by February 1st, which is next week, that he will begin to pull funding directed towards the city and county that is aimed at assisting law enforcement. For instance, there are a number of grants that the Travis County Sheriff's Office gets to basically, keep its budget going, and those could be put in jeopardy. For instance, last year the state, in one particular grant, I think the county got $1.8 million from the state. And that was part of their budgeting process, something that I think helped to maintain the jail. And if that money is pulled, the sheriff's office is going to have to, look at its own budget and figure out what to do going forward. The idea, of course, is to see exactly who would blink first here.
Things have gone a long way in a different direction for a long time. Law enforcement in St. Louis back in the 60s used to actually get a bounty for every illegal they turned over to ICE. And these days we've got elected officials, the sheriff in this case, saying that he's simply not going to cooperate on immigration enforcement. Very strange.
Well, she actually.
She,
but,
okay, yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's essentially what's happening. That this, it's an elected sheriff. I realize not everyone has an elected sheriff, but in this part of the country, the sheriff is elected, and that was a campaign issue that she would not do this. And would not comply with those rules, and so in this case, it may happen to deal with federal law and immigration, but the threat is coming from the governor, who I know, when you don't live on a border state, you may not be as fully aware to the border issues, but Texas has to deal with at a state level the porous border all the time. For a number of different reasons, and state law enforcement is very heavily involved in not just necessarily border security, but the issues that result from a border that's porous, with everything to do with drugs and countless things.
Yeah, very true. So I'm guessing then, I think I heard Congressman Keith Ellison pushing to try to make the state of Texas a blue state. I'm wondering if Austin might already be a blue speck in the middle of a very large red state.
Historically, Austin has been a blue speck.
Yes.
It sort of exists in a bubble outside with the rest of the state of Texas sort of surrounding it. It has historically been a bit more progressive. It's also the home of the University of Texas, and it's actually quite a nice town. If you enjoy a good town to visit, I won't say anything bad about Austin. But culturally, it is a bit different than the rest of the state, and it's something that has always been the case.
Eben Brown, Fox News Radio, thanks for your time.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Interesting stuff there. I once heard Boulder, Colorado described by a student who went to school there as 20 square miles surrounded by reality. My sneaking suspicion is Austin, Texas is the same way. However many square miles surrounded by reality. Let me tell you what else they've done in Austin. The Austin City Council has its own Human Rights Commission. Now, I don't know who's ever heard of that before, but the City Council in Austin has its own Human Rights Commission, which apparently thinks so highly of itself that it passed a resolution Monday evening declaring the new president of the United States and the vice president both a threat to human rights values.